Hello chat. Welcome back to Elden. God, just noticed something. Let me center my. There we go. Um, Today, stream will consist of um more. Oh my God, what did I just do? There we go. Here now. So, um, I don't remember quite what we did last time. It was a lot to go through, and I was kind of in a haze. I had kind of a bad headache that day. Um, I hope today will be much better. Here, let me just. I am falling apart. There we. Okay. So I did a few things to prepare for today's stream. Um, Namely, I moved a couple things, shrunk a few things to get everything situated and prepared. I added a few new descriptions. Um, I'll start from the beginning here. With the astrologers, I made the connection between the two. Of course, this is a very well known connection that the astrologers were friends with the giants, as uh, evidenced by the Sword of Night and Flame, which is a beautiful sword, by the way, and one of the best swords in the game. And it says the storied sword and treasure of Caria, which is where you find the sword. And it says that the astrologers who preceded the sorcerers established themselves in the mountaintops that nearly touched the sky and considered the fire giants their neighbors. And of course, unique skills Night and Flame stance, which uses the powers of the uh, primeval current and fire of the fell god. And of course, um, I put them around here. I also moved the dynasty of Ul, or Uld, if you will, over here, and I forgot to put a little thing here. And I put them here because I have a feeling. I had a feeling while thinking about a couple things, which I'll get into later in the stream, about the order of events that things happen and what it makes sense. And I did like a archaeological dig, sort of, um, while playing Elden Ring yesterday, and I noticed a couple things about the dynasty. Um, for one, they seemingly have one of the oldest, like, known, um like, how do you say it? Like, buildings. Like, their stuff is pretty broken. And I have a couple things to more images of their things to show as well. Um but today's, and oh, sorry. I got ahead of myself in my head a little bit. Slow down. So over here I moved Karia, the manor, over here, and I pointed it to be around, like, even a little bit before or during the start of the Crucible, and I put them here because they have, like, no real, like, set point when they happened. I mean, families themselves certainly um have, like, a ways of, forming over time, and certainly with their own dynasty. I mean, they could be related to the ancient dynasty of Ul. I have no idea. We do know that the dynasty utilized glintstone sorcery. In fact, the version 1.0 version of the Oracle Bubble stated that it was ancient glintstone sorcery. So that could, or excuse me, that points directly to the fact that the um, people of dynasty were most certainly around during the time that the founding Ring of Stars happened, uh, or after, which I think they did. Um, though of course the the dynast himself, Elton John, he's a figure that um plays into the story that I have in my head about the game's history, and I feel like he is one of the most important characters for the entire story. Um, and I'll get into that in a minute. I have a few images ready, but I have a couple that I didn't quite get into the folder that I had created. So when we get into the Sun Realm stuff, um, there'll be times where I will have to look for images, but I have most of them ready, and I took the time to take pictures in game. And I also moved the Academy's um, establishment to around the same time as the establishment of the Sun Realm, excuse me, and I'll get into that in a minute as to why. I also moved the Eternal Cities to be um kind of like in the middle of the Karian family and the Academy. Um, and I'll get into reasons why later. Also, I moved Castle Sol to be around here at the same time. I feel like the people of the Eternal Cities built or occupied Castle Sol um, around this time, seemingly for reasons that I'll get into later that have to do with Sunrealm. I also, uh, excuse me, I also moved the Lomai Queen to be around the same time as the Sun Realm, um, though that might change. And also connected the God Slayer's Great Sword to the Divine Towers. That's where you find it, and that's where you fight the Godskin Apostle. Um, and it seems like the Glow My Queen has ties to the towers, not because I think that she built them or had them built, um, or has any real like connections to it. Though I might think that she has like cultural connections to it. Um, Also, I added in the Oracle Envoy search we'll get into. Okay, so first of all, we need to talk about the Sun Realm. The Sun Realm is a hot topic in the Elden Ring lore community, I think, today, because it's one of the only things that we don't really know about too well, seemingly. Excuse me, take a drink of water. They have only one written piece of lore, and that is the Sun Realm shield which we went over last time. And the thing about it is that out of all the other things in the lore, this is the one that I think is the most important because I think it shows a time of when before the Erd Tree had existed, and it was at the height of Sax's power, and of course the power of his god, but also around the same time that the um like great colleges and great powers of the world like came together and established themselves um uh as things that could then combat it, the Sun Realm. But you'll see that a lot of these places have um imagery that evoke the sun and evoke something called the um and I looked it up earlier, but I forgot what it's called. It's called the flower of life symbol. Let me pull it up here and post it. It's a pattern that is a real pattern, of course, in our own world, and it's a pattern that is one of like great patterns, like the Fibonacci sequence. It's a I'll put it over here. It's one of those things like when you see it, like you're like, oh, I've seen something like this, but it goes even deeper than that. 2 seconds, chat. Okay, sorry about that, chat. Um, okay, so let me get back to... Sorry, my headset decided to fuck itself, but it's fine now. Fixed it. Um, so this flower of life, I'll type it out here so see what I mean. It's it's like the Fibonacci sequence or the golden ratio. It's one of those things that when you see it, you think to yourself, that's interesting because I've seen this symbol everywhere. But it goes even deeper than that, I think. I looked up the flower of life symbol on Wikipedia because of course, I'm not the only one who noticed that this symbol shows up in game. I think the first one who talked about it that I had watched was Quaylog. She goes way deeper into this than I ever could. Um, but one of the images that I saw while researching this um, pattern was this image. And I don't know about you, but when I saw this, I kind of like freaked out because that's the fucking Elden Ring right here. And out, of course, like, let me pull up the Elden Ring. Like it's literally it's literally Elden Ring. Like there's no question that it is. Like it's actually just the Elden Ring. Um and I think its significance here showcases that divine symbols or in like the sense that the symbols show up all around uh like the universe and such, I think is something that like when you see it, it blows your mind because but also it connects to everything. But I think in a real way, I think this shows that Miyazaki had a vision for the Elden Ring in the sense that when he said that the Elden Ring is a representation of power, it's a representation of the laws of nature, which of course all the runes represent that make up the Elden Ring itself. And I think that the older one, it's especially is akin to one of these ones over here, maybe flipped, or probably even this one if you like if you turn it around, or excuse me, if you rotate it like this way, like it looks like you know the one at Farum Azula, and like you'll see, and I'll pull up the images later in a second here, but you're gonna see that this symbol shows up in pretty much every single um civilization building that is associated with the Sun Realm. Um, and most poignantly, one of the greater powers that will end up being at the head of everything in the end. Okay, so let's begin. Um, let's begin actually with something that I do not have images of at the moment, and that is the Dominula Windmill Village. I'll just get a image of. Let's see here. I'm bringing up the Dominula village because I feel like this village is one of the most important in the lore for a couple of reasons. Number one being that the village itself seemingly is part of an old festival that I can find an image here. The village with the women dancing. Because the women dancing around is the most important parts of it. And the fact that they skin people, which is quite grotesque. Um, a bunch of images of them, but it's not really good images. They're all pretty low res. Um, let's see here. Well, here's the village itself, actually. This is a good image. And I'm gonna place this um village to represent, of course, the ritual that I am attributing to the people of Dominula and of the Festival of Flowers that when we speak of. Put it probably up here because it seems like I'm kind of running out of room just a bit. Okay, so that's the windmill village of Dominula. And of course you can see the little women here, but if I can get a better image of them, that would be fantastic. Fabulous. I'll take this image because it's like the only one with like the flowers braced. Um so these are the women of Dominula here. And of course, like when everyone first sees this in game, and certainly at the time when the game came out, immediately people were like, "Oh my god, this is like Midsummer," that movie about the the people who live in Sweden and they do this ritual that, or not ritual, like they live in a cult where they worship the coming of was it spring, I think, and of course you think to yourself like, oh, that's just like normal pagan, you know stuff. That's fine. But then, of course, it's flipped on its head and kind of like goes into white supremacy stuff, which, of course, Sweden. But, anyways, it talks about how, like, to get towards divinity, people do things that to us may seem awful, but to them are is like the best thing you can get uh the goal that you're trying to. And for the women of Daminula, and if I can get the festive garb, and there's actually two of them. There's the regular set and the blue set. There you go. There's the regular set that you see on the women here. And where's the blue set? Oh, and I should also get the hat. The hat is also important. Features the flowers. And the blue set. Let's see. Type in blue festive. Oh, there we go. Oh, and this one shows the helmet along with it. Great. There you go. And also, maybe if I could find one that shows the back. Yeah, here we go. Thank you, whoever had this on Reddit. This is on the back of the blue one, obviously, but it shows on the regular festive garb. Okay, so, and let me get the description as well. I do not want to leave that out. So I can illustrate exactly what I intend to theorize and put together. Okay, well, here's for the one for the blue set. And it says, ceremonial garb worn by the dancers at the festivals in Daminula, village of Windmill. And I'll dye it light. Use of this garb, dyed in a stunning blue, is only permitted for the young maids who play the central role of the festival. And I think it's important that the description or pronoun, I guess, not pronoun, adjective, there you go. Adjective of young is important because it plays into something that Hawkshaw, which is a great YouTube channel, by the way, they do great work on figuring out the lore of these games. And in their Elden Ring Iceberg, they talk about how the women of Daminula, who a phantom outside of the village. I think you can kind of see him right here, that little piece of white that my cursor's hovering over. He talks about how he doesn't want his hide to be skinned. He wants to keep it, and he says like, "Oh, I'm filthy. You don't want this." And you might be asking yourself, why is he talking like that? Like, why is he talking about his skin like that? And this village here, the central village, is surrounded by, or not surrounded, but is flanked to its right by, if you look from the entrance, like if you're walking down this way and you look to the right, you would see more of the windmills. To its right, you'll see three other windmills, and in the second to last one, you see the women dancing around a burning pile of corpses that have been flayed. And of course, these corpses are the putrid corpses that rise from the dead and blow up. But within that is the garb of a woman, a traveling uh, sorceress, seemingly a noble, and of course you get the blue um, hood from that allows you to get more FP in your character, which is a nice addition, I think. But I think what it shows is that the festival that's happening here is it's gruesome, so gruesome in fact that the people who are unfortunate enough to get close to this place understand very well that, hey, if you go here, you will most likely die. But at the same time, they respect what's happening here. And that's when we get into the next bit of lore. Oh, and also the other festive garb that um is here is, I'll read it. It says here that it's faintly bloodstained, and the hood itself is also of much prominence. Um, and it says that it's decorated with many colored flowers, and that's a point that I want to get at here when I talk about the festive grease you find in this. Festive grease, festive grease. There you go, festive grease. Interesting enough, you only find this grease in the realm of shadow, but I think, and I'll get the um, description for it. Where is it? There you go. Okay, let's see. Whole thing. And I want you to pay attention to the wording that they attribute to this stuff. Okay, here we go. Solidified knot grease made from a mixture of bone shards. Of course, it coats the armament, imparting a festive incantation that grants the wielder a scant few wounds on landing attacks. Now, that is also interesting. I'm going to pause here. And that's interesting because all of the ceremonial tools that the women use in Dominula offer you whatchamacallit, runes upon hitting enemies. And these tools are made of the bones of the people they flayed. And I'll get the most prominent one here that you uh, will most likely get on your first playthrough of the game. It's the Celebrant Skull. It's, of course, the skull of somebody. Um, but what the description says about it, and I'll grab it here, it says a large bludgeon decorated with flowers and many decorated fabrics. ceremonial tool used by the dancers during the festivities of Daminula Windmill Village. The striking end is a skull too large in the size excuse me, is a skull too large in size to be human. Grants trace amount of runes on landing attacks. And I think the description of the skull being too large to be human is also very important, I think. Um because I don't think that the women of Dominula and certainly of the festivities here were using these were using the corpses of anyday people. I think they were most likely um attacking Newman specifically. I'll get into why I think that or later. And of course, the rest of the festive Greece here. It grants the wielder a few runes landing attacks. The delightful festival is an old tradition, one old enough for the Erd tree to tactically tolerate its endurance. And I think that is the most interesting part of it. The fact that it's so old, and actually, I'm gonna move this because I put it here so I can have room. I think it's interesting that it pointedly says that the festival here is tolerated, as if, like, in some way, its existence, you would think, would be shunned, would be put away, in the sense that the people who do this festival are doing something blasphemous. And I think that's the most important part of the festival itself. Let me take a drink of water. Because the women here are, and this is what Hawkshaw talks about in their video on the serpents, that the women here, this is their theory, not mine, but that the women here are sacrificing virgins to appeal to their virility that they've lost, and that this virility is connected to the serpent, in the sense that the serpent symbolizes uh, fertility. It symbolizes one's own um, like virility. Like I'm, it's like it's a circular logic, but it makes sense when you think about, and certainly when we watched the video. But of course, I connected it to the divine feminine here because that's certainly what they're invoking. And I think what's also important is that they're not sacrificing just humans, and certainly not making the tools out of humans. I believe they're making the tools out of, and this, of course, goes back to here where I moved um the old civilization here. And I moved it here because I feel like the dynasty of Uld is one of the oldest. I think it's probably so old that it might even like precede Meteor. It's like herself. But not so much so that it's past the ancient astrologers. I think maybe they're probably part of the ancient astrologers, whom I think are probably the first people who inhabited land. Though we'll get into the horn scent in a minute here. Um, what's important is that they fled, of course, and I think they probably fled because of this guy. And actually, I don't think fleeing is the right word. This was a thing that I connected last time to maybe, oh, maybe this is probably because of the Glowmite Queen. But no, I think that they deliberately put themselves into the coffins. And I think they did this because the man here, the dynast, Elden John, I think he had a vision. And this goes into Tarnished Archaeologist's theory that I subscribe to, that he is like a Moses figure. He's standing on the Imugu Mundi, which is what the what do you call it? The scan that Miyazaki's team used for this rock here. But I think what it represents, of course, the map of the old world. But what it represents here in game is the old world that he's leaving behind, and he's clutching the map of the new world, which is, if you he goes into the video, that is an image of a tree, and of course he has roots coming out of him. And I think he had this image not on his own. I think that Meteor and of course the Two Fingers probably had a part in this. Of course, they themselves aren't connected and weren't connected to the Greater Will at that time. They were abandoned, Meteor, and by virtue, the Two Fingers didn't have any solid evidence that what Meteor was saying was true. They probably talked to each other and said, "Oh, I guess we'll just have to go off of what we were given at first and just wing it from there." And of course, see, I'm not talking about Oracle Homemaze right now because it gets into the Sun Realm. But I think that at the time that the dynasty in the dynasty saw this prophecy, seemingly, I think they put themselves into these coffins. Maybe around this time where the Crucible happened, or maybe a little bit after. But anyways, they put themselves into coffins and ended up at the cerulean coast of the Land of Shadow. Um, and that's also the one that I don't really know. Like, this is the contention. The contention is that it's around the obelisk, of course, that you get this from, that connects to the coffins at the Cerulean coast, and not many people can quite agree on when does the time that these coffins come into play. You could make interpretation that the timeline goes like this. You know, the people start out at the bottom and they do their rituals and they've seen image of trees in this second one right here, and they go into the coffins, or that they arrive on coffins and they go on from there. You could go both ways. I'm of the opinion that they probably first were in like the surrounding lands between, and then made their way to the Land of Shadow, where the Crucible was the strongest. Where I think it's the Thorns incantation that says this, not the Flower one for some reason, but the Thorns one says that the um virility of the Crucible was the strongest in the Land of Shadow, even after it being shrouded by Marika. And I think that's important because if that's the case, then that has to mean the Crucible like was there. Like that was the point where everything happened. And now we're getting into the Sun Realm because I feel like, and the Sun Realm might have been around the same time as King Rao, not sure, but I don't think it was quite at the same time as this. It could have been the case that the Kingdom of Rao was like the oldest one, like it happened like before all of this, possible. Um, but I put them here just for the sense that they have magic available at this time, and I don't think that they would have this magic if it weren't for the discoveries by the astrologers in the dynasty, who seemingly already had um, the chops to make this stuff. And of course, their connections to the fire giants, who are very old and probably the oldest ones here. I probably should put them farther back because they seem to be the first ones to inhabit the lands between before humans. But I put them where they are, and I don't know. I'll think about it later. But in any case, you might be asking yourself, why do I think that it was Newman being sacrificed here? And that goes into, um, let me see here, the Hammer of America. This hammer is very important because it's the hammer that Marika used to destroy the Elden Ring. Um, that is a terrible picture. Well, the importance is reading it out. I'll talk about the destruction of the Elden Ring much later on, and probably a different stream. But, um, the main thing about the hammer is that it itself was made in the lands of Newman, but that it it splintered into rune fragments upon breaking. Um, Not the Elden Ring. The hammer itself now contains runes inside of it, maybe because of the Elden Ring, but I think no. I think that, and this is interesting, that the hammer and the people, the Newman, are not quite human. They're Newman. They're living people like humans, but they're kind of like made of stone at the same time, or some substance that's harder than human skin. And of course, this goes into the giants and stuff when you talk about Radigan, but the main thing is that this is probably why the skull itself is too large to be human, and why it's effective at striking people, but also how it grants people runes, and why during the festival, when they flay these people and they do this ritual of, of dancing and cutting apart people and all this stuff, that it evokes divinity. And this is a ritual that I think plays into the next part of the Sun Realm theory, which is where, oh God, where am I gonna put this? Um, I have to talk about, let move these things. I'm gonna talk about the horn scent, but I need to move these things around. There you go. Okay. So now we're gonna talk about one of the oldest, like, great civilizations, the greatest one that ever to live, and that's the kingdom, not the kingdom, the Hornsen civilization and their city of Belurat. Let me get a picture of Belurat. Belurat. And actually the name Belurat is as Quelaag put it, very historically important because it puts together the two names Belarus and uh Ziggurat, I think. I think that's how she put it. And it's like, oh, it's evoking um like divine, like Greekian, um like Babylon type shit, you know? And certainly when you get into the Tower of Belurat and Yerusalem, it is, I can't find a good picture of it. I don't know why. Like, no one takes pictures of Belurat for some reason. It's a big city, don't get me wrong. Um where is a good image of Belurat? Be on reddit.com. The song that's actually playing right now is of Belurat Tower Settlement. And the Hornsent built many towns around um place. Where is a picture of Enir Ilim and Belurat? This is awful. Very, very awful. I'm not prepared. Where is it? Oh well, I'll use the picture separate so I can show you, but I need you to understand that this tower that you'll see shrouded in darkness is not, it hasn't been shrouded in darkness before. So I'll copy this image. There you go. So this is Belrat here. You see and it evokes a lot of the dynasty, but I don't think it is a dynasty. I think that this tower settlement is probably like of the dynasty. Like it takes inspiration from these people. And what's interesting is that they were around after the Kingdom of Rao because the Hornsent scholars who are from Belurat take inspiration of the sprite magic that was happening in the Kingdom of Rao, which of course the Kingdom of Rao took much in the way of establishing people as a divine thing first before the Hornsent. I add a sticky note. I can't spell Belurat and Enir Ilum. Now, can get a picture of Enir Ilum. Now, Enir Ilum is um probably one of the most important areas, probably in all the lore of the game. Why is that a bad image? Oh well. Okay, this is embarrassing. Why can't people take pictures that are good for once in their life, please? Oh, this is an excellent picture. It's a taken brief. There you go. This is taken at the ruins of Rao, but this is Enir Ilum. It's a spiral tower, much like the Tower of Babylon was in antiquity. Um, I don't know how they built this, by the way. I have questions, but it culminates in something called the Divine Gate. Now, later on, of course in the game it's shrouded by shadow, but that's because of America. I will get into why that is later, but let me get a picture of the Divine Gateway. Elden. Here we go. Or excuse me, the Gate of Divinity. That's what it's called. My bad. And immediately when you see the Gate of Divinity, it's quite magnificent, but also it evokes the same shape as the tower at the back of the Shadow Keep. The tower that I theorized is representative of like an ancient sun ritual, which I think um, the Gate of Divinity um, is also evoking, but to a higher extent. I think that this gate here probably most likely. I just like put it. There you go. I think the Gate of Divinity itself, God, is going to be the most widely talked about things later on in the coming years about the game's lore. I think that it's. Oh, I mean, certainly we know it's the point where America became a god. In the story trailer for the DLC, it's actually fresh at that point. And I think that I'm putting it here, but it was probably made a little bit later. Like I'm of the belief that, um, like I just put it there because I did to put it next to them, so I can show that it's connected to Bellarat and the tower. But I think it was made after, um, the tower back here. I think the tower back here is of an attempt by the Hornsent to collect the sun's energy, and when they realized that wouldn't be quite the ways to do it, I think that's when they started constructing the Tower of Bellarat, and at the end of it all, the Divine Gateway, or excuse me, the Gate of Divinity. Gate of Divinity. Now, the Gate of Divinity, being the place where America and where Mikola becomes a god, I'd be asking like why, and I think this is because it's connected directly to the Sun realm or the Sun itself, which I think is probably the god that the Horn Sen originally had been um worshiping. A drink of water. You might ask yourself, why is that? Why do I think that the people of Belurat were um worshiping the sun? And well, I'll tell you. So first, we're actually going to start this little piecing together of things at Farum Azula. Here, there we go. Hi, Farum Azula. So at Farum Azula, you have probably the most prominent pieces of uh divine invocation. First of all, you have this amazing um pattern on the ground all over Farum Azula. It's an interpretation of an eight-sided sun. And of course, if you count, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, an eight-sided sun, of course, surrounded by eight rings. And of course, it's an invocation of flower of life. Go figure. Let me shrink it down. And this was my first inkling that something was awry. The next pattern I saw was the flower of life, and you find this flower of life in a couple places in Harumuzula. And the last place that I could find connected that showcased another portion of Harumuzula's influence was at the Farum Bridge in the lands between leading up to the Bestial Sanctum. You find this in both bridges that lead towards the Bestial Sanctum in Caelid. And it's, of course, the eight-sided sun symbol. So that's the first inkling that the dragons were part of the Sun Realm and probably were the inheritors of it, of the sun's power and influence. It's an amazing find, of course, when you first find it. But then, like, when you get into the other places of the timeline, it gets a bit mental. So let's start with Rhea Lucaria. So in Rhea Lucaria, start here. The Flower of Life. You find this at the front gate leading up to the elevator right back here. That window is that leads you up to the main gates of the academy. Why is it here? Why would this be here? I'd be asking, like, these people, they study the stars. This can't be. Why are they invoking the sun? And the real, the real answer is that these people were sun worshippers, or perhaps they evoked the sun in their rituals here at the academy, because the sun itself is a star. It's part of the same stuff that they were studying, which is the glintstone sorcery. It's the life in stars, the life of rocks. Everything. The sun is technically a rock on the inside, like all planets, everything, the moon. There's a theory that from Occam's Onion, which goes into the eclipse, that I didn't watch the whole way through. Let me get my own thoughts out before I watch his video on that. And I think he stated that the sun here is eclipsed. I don't quite think so. I think that this... I think he does. If I'm misremembering stuff that I saw, then I'm sorry for that. But my thought process is that this is the sun, and that Raya Lucaria itself was established at the same time as the Sun Realm. And on the I don't have a picture of it here find the Academy of Ray Lucaria magic symbol on their sigil. Here we go.
When you find a deal on your favorite
Oh my
thing
god.
in the McDonald's
Really?
app and order it, does that technically count as
Be
online?
quiet, McDonald's. No one likes you. That was funny. I didn't think that would happen. I'm running an hour-long OST of Ballarat. Okay, so this is the sigil of Ray Lucaria that you get on all the magical spells from there. And on the sigil, at the top you have the culmination of the sun beaming down. You have a star, and then you have the sun again here, and of course flanked by the birds of the cuckoo. So it's like this place was built during the time of the sun. Another piece of evidence is Renala. I thought I had a picture of her sitting. I don't think I saved it to my phone. Um, but this is a perfectly fine picture. It's the same sigil that you see here. You also find the sigil. This is the elevator, by the way, that leads up to the library. But you find this um symbol, this tile, in the debate hall, also in a bigger way. But this is the biggest one here, and this one at the Grand Library that Renala sits in is, of course, it's an 8-sided star, by the way. Or 8-pointed star, 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. An 8-point star. Always evoking the Eye of the Fell God. And I'll get into why that is. But he's sitting on uh, an 8-sided star tile. So the library itself was, at least the library itself was built at that time, if anything. No one wants to believe that's connected to Sun Realm. There you go. Uh, and the last bit um, of stuff actually links to Karya, and that is the windows at Manus Metcher. Um, and I picked this one because also it's number 8. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Always 8. But Manus Metcher is, of course, a cathedral of the hand that there is another one, of course, we know of. Actually, two other ones. We have Manicellus and the Church of Vows, which I'll get into later. Probably not, probably much later. But Manicellus and Manicellus and the Church of Vows are both destroyed by the time we get there, but they both would have featured this window which evokes the sun, the 8-sided star. There we go. These connections to the Sun Realm are very explicit, and of course you find all sorts of, like, for instance, this pattern here, this 6-sided flower symbol, which also kind of shows up in I think there's also a 4-sided flower somewhere on one of these, but there's also a 4-sided flower somewhere in the game that shows up everywhere, and it's like it evokes the sun, but it also, I think, evokes the flower festival as well, which is of course connected to the sun, because I think that the flowers at Dominula were getting power from the sun, from the divine, and that in this way they were evoking the closest, I think, to the greater will at this point. The screen. Um. So yeah, you have that. Um. Let's see here. Next is the dynasty. I have one connection to the Sun realm here, but not in the same ways that they're connected. We have a circle surrounded by 8 points here, which I think, of course, connects to the sun again for obvious reasons. I think, um, though I don't think that the people at the dynasty originally were evoking the sun. I think that they're most certainly evoking some other thing. Most likely whatever these microcosms were, the or faux microcosms, say, because they didn't actually evoke them. Um, and that was an attempt to emulate what Metro did, and that was to connect to Great Will, and I think that they failed at that. But now we get to the Oracle envoys, which are a band of musicians who play their pipes to herald the arrival of a new god or a new age. What they blow are bubbles, and on their instruments are sun ornamentations. We got one there. We got many sun ornamentations leading up on this one. And of course, this one's just covered in sun ornamentations. These Oracle envoys are connected directly to the divine and just seemingly just show up out of nowhere to herald in a new god or age. And I think that this heralding, this all these things that were being pointed out to the Dynas was enough for them to put themselves into the coffins, such as though they could arrive at the Land of Shadow, which probably went by a different name at that time, in order to um, bring about what I think is the Age of the Erd Tree. Um, a drink of water. Now, an interesting connection that I found while just running around the ruins of Rouse, something just a little thing that I can't put a connection to at this moment because I don't know what it means really, is this. It's an aqueduct that you find if you okay, so if you take the teleporter at the consecrated snowfield to get to Mogwin Palace, excuse me, you find here an aqueduct built by the Rao people. And it's the only one of its kind that I could find myself um in this area, and certainly in the Shifa River only. And I don't think there is one in the Ainzel River. If there is, correct me if I'm wrong. But this connection here to Dynasty is something that I don't quite know, like what it means. Um, it could mean that the people of Rao were connected to the Dynasty in the sense that the Dynasty were the first people, or it could mean that the Kingdom of Rao were friends and they just headed over there. But in any case, this connection to the Kingdom of Rao is huge, I think, and I haven't seen anyone talk about this yet. Um, and I think it's very important because of the implications of Rao's influence on everything. So there's that. Now, okay, these other things about the eclipse. Let's see here. Uh, I don't have anything talking about Lanedale at the moment, but I want to put. I'll just put it like over here, like next to this, and I'll move it accordingly. But in Lanedale, you also find images of the sun. For one, we have the Flower of Life symbol at the Dectus elevator, leading up to the Altus Plateau. The next is at the foot of the Erd Tree. We have another. There's a problem. Excuse me. Pardon. Okay, that was weird. Anyways, um, another flower of life symbol that appears at the foot of the Earth tree. And the last one I think is most important, and that is the flower of life symbol appears in America's bedchamber. And of course, I wouldn't be bringing up the flower of life at all for the fact that um its invocation is tied directly to the Sun Realm and the village of Damiula, or not the village itself, but the festival that was happening. And the festival itself, I think, um, oh, also, I'll get into that later. But also, the festival itself has seemingly, like, I think when they did the festival, they found something scary, something that scared them, something that they didn't expect to find. And I'll get into that in a minute here, but I also have a couple of miscellaneous images put together. The first one is Castle Sol here. Its connection to the Sun Realm. Here we have, of course, the eclipsed sun, but also the same eight-pointed flower and ring symbol here that evokes the sun at Castle Sol. This was one of the oldest connections that people have made to Castle Sol in Faru Missoula. People thought that Castle Sol was connected to Faru Missoula. Now, knowing DLC and knowing everything now, it's most likely that they were evoking um, the sun because, of course, they wanted to eclipse it. They wanted to put the sun away. And I'll get into why later on. But next image is the uh, the spikes that wall the fences of the defenses of the Shadowkeep, and they evoke the same pattern as the Sunrealm Castle. You can see here it's literally the same shape here. That connects the Shadowkeep to the Sunrealm. I said that last time, but I wanted a picture of it so you could see that I wasn't just talking out of my ass. But anyways, I think that's all of them, right? I hope I didn't miss it. Oh, I did miss some. Okay, so we have some in Bellarat as well. And I think that the connections with Bellarat and all these places is just like insane. Um, we have a flower of life here, a bigger one that's in the theater of the divine beast, and it's a chain of them that lead up. This line of stones winds around like a of course, crucible, all the way up, and there's just flowers of life that lead up to the place for the divine beast and the sculpted keepers sleep. I think that's very cool. Next one is this big elevator here. Now I'll bring up the other picture too so I could show them both. They both feature the same um star symbol, the eight-pointed star. Goes up again. Um the one here though is an octagonal elevator that features a more prominent pattern of the same pattern here, but in like, a better form, but I couldn't get a good picture of it. But it's essentially the same pattern here. And in the middle, of course, is another eight-pointed star, the sun. The sun is evoked in Enir Ilum and Belurat as a whole. And the last image, I don't know if it means anything, uh, but it's the cleansing chamber. Um, and I just wanted to just put this out there, but like the number 8 shows up in the cleansing chamber as well, with the size of it. It's an octagon. We have the side behind my character, which is the first side. We have the side in front of me, the exit that leads up to the Divine Gateway. That's two. We have one, two, three. So that's three plus two. That's five, right? And you have one, two, three again. That's six plus two equals eight. There's eight here as well. Number eight is here. And in the cleansing chamber, you have these monumentals, which appear in, I think it's Demon Souls, and I don't know what their connection to Demon Souls in that game is. I think it's Demon Souls, or maybe it's Sekiro. I forget. But they're kind of like significant. They have little horns, I think, on their heads. Um, but I think what they represent in this game is probably like just like people praying, like people evoking the divine while this cleansing is happening. Um, and of course, the cleansing is in reference to um, probably an old ritual that the Horn Scent were doing, but had to probably stop because, and I think that the cleansing was to find a candidate that was worthy of becoming um, a god that they were hoping would lead them to salvation. And I think that god was Marika. This is an old theory that happened right after the DLC came out. But I think that Marika was the god that they were hoping um would lead them to salvation, to lead them to the promised land that would put the sun at the head of everything. Um that I think that Marika was a shaman that would feature in this festival. This festival that had many flowers, flowers of many kinds that would show up in the hinterland in the village that Marika was born in. That she was Newman. She was of the people that I think were slaughtered at this festival and were used um by the shaman there. And I think that Marika herself, and of course the Hornson had their own interpretation of the ritual of the festival. I think the festival itself was probably done different ways at different places. In Dominula, of course, we only find the one that's at the end. But the Hornsen, I think, took it probably way too far. I think that the Hornsen, um, most likely did something really sussy. I think that they 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 knew the ritual and they knew that it worked. The ritual that would bring about divinity. I mean, they stacked bodies upon bodies to create their divine gateway. But of course, I think that the divine gateway wasn't completely built until America did. Until America ascended. Um, I have thoughts. I have many, many thoughts that I want to get out about all of this. My God. Okay, so let's take a step back here because we need to establish the reason why things went bad and why and why America betrayed the Horn Sin. And start of all that needs to be established first with the fingers, the fingy. So at the Finger Ruins, which is I think is the place um that the fingers landed, of course, first, were excuse me, are giant walls that feature um like windy fingerprint patterns that, just like, you know, like wavy. There's also an invocation of, let's see here, the fingerprint shield, which was part of the um seal that would keep in the Three Fingers. There's series that the Three Fingers weren't part of the same spawn as the Two Fingers. I don't quite believe that. I think that they probably did show up, but just served a different master, and that master was, of course, um, the Chaos God. If there, ah, yes, there is. Time for some finger action. Okay, all right. Now, the fingers themselves, um, I had a sticky note here for the finger and shield. Whoops. I have a theory I'm going to put here. And that theory starts directly with I think it's called the Shattered Stone Talisman. Here we go. We have the Shattered Stone Talisman. One second. Okay, I sneezed. Alright. So I'm getting the description of this here. Make it blue. Why not? So it says here that the Shattered Linchpin Stone raised potency of kicking and stomping. Um, they were spiritual anchors set to hold the ground in place and quell a fury of earthquakes. When this one shattered, the surrounding town fell into the broken earth. One account claimed that the moon itself had come tumbling down. Now, I think that, of course, this stone here, its description of the moon tumbling down is just a metaphor for what happened at that town, the town you get this at. Um, that hold in place the town into the earth itself so it doesn't fall in. But I think what it evokes is that the moon itself probably did at one point fall down. There's a ruined forge called Ruined Forge of Starfall Pass, and of course that evokes the founding Reign of Stars here. Um, and I have a theory that the moon at one point broke apart. Probably the Black Moon of Noctella. Maybe was that moon. I don't really know. That would put the Eternal Cities further back than any civilization that was before anything. Probably at the Elden Beast, but it's iffy. But in any case, I think that the moon did come tumbling down. Um, maybe it was a moon that no one had known about. I don't know. But and I think, see here, at the fingers, see, finger ruins. Get a picture of them. There are these stones that are all around the finger ruins that look like tiny moons that are broken up. Like when I saw this, I freaked out because like, oh my god. And most likely, I don't think it was a black moon of Noctella that caused the starfall. I don't think that was the case. I think that what happened is that the either the full moon or Ronnie's dark moon probably the full moon, considering that the full moon takes the most intelligence to use. Um, or maybe all of them had got hit by a meteor and broke apart, and that in this way, um, it landed in the finger. I can't find a picture of what I want to find. But this one. Let's see here. Hmm. You can't really see it, but like kind of like behind this finger here. But they're like it's like a perfectly spherical, like spherical, um, rock that looks like a moon, which is what moon looks like to us. Um, and I have a theory that the moon is attributed to fingers. That Emir in his helmet here um says that he lost allegiance to the moon because he viewed the moon as the closest celestial body but nothing more. He pushed aside the notion that the moons could actually harbor power, that they could actually have equal um equal notions of that power as stars do. And in Karia, they value the moon more than the stars, or equal to the stars, I should say. Actually, that would be more accurate. And you find that in the lazuli robe. Let's see here. I shall also put in the helmet. It has a similar description. Sorry, I'm reading and trying to put things together at the same time. Bear with me. Okay, there's the first one and second one. There you go. There's uh the Burger King himself. Hey, there we go. Control C, Control V. There we go. Research. Okay, so this is the robe worn by the scholars of the Lazuli Conspectus, singular among the greater Raylucaria Academy. These scholars who sought to master Carian sorcery instead learned to see the moon as equal to the stars. Um, of course, the robe is in hue. The full moon is symbolized their heresy. This heresy is, of course, also described as heterodox stars because they equal the moon, which the Glintstone sorcerers of the Academy did not view the moon as equal to the stars. And I think that's because I don't think they understood what the Carians had understood. The Carians who have ties to the ancient astrologers because they fucking own the Sword of Night and Flame, one of the first connections to another divine invocation of a god, and that was the Eye of the Fell God. They were friends with people that knew more than them, the Academy. And I think that the Karian family, especially, had um placed themselves probably before this. And of course, I think that the robe here symbolizes scholars who did indeed study at the academy, but probably after um Renala had taken over as headmaster. I think that's what happened, and that's why these two items exist. Um, you also find these scholars at Castle Ensis in DLC and at Karya Manor. So it seems like at the same time, um, as all was happening, they were learning stuff about the moon for a very long time. Um, so yeah, there we go. I think these connections to the moon and Arya are important because I think that the Karians knew far more about this than one of them. So, let's see. I'll put this as a theory. Moon harbored fingers, which also may be mushrooms. Um, and thus began the Starfall incident described by founding reign of Star. I can't speak. And the name Forge of Starfall Past. So there you go. That's the theory, and I wanted to get out of the way just so I could just like put it there and get it out of my mind so I don't have to talk about it again because it racks my brain for a bunch of reasons. Because the fingers just showing up themselves and all these like round shaped stones just dotting around these ruins, and the fact that the oh, and by the way, I'll get into the mushroom theory as well. I'm gonna get a picture of the mushroom here. But I like it just it I mean like it's a lot to think about. The fingers are an enigma to me and a lot of people because their existence um wow, that is a terrible picture. Um can I get a better one, please? May chance? Perchance? Well, there's a finger mimic mushroom. Extra life save me. So yeah, these mushrooms were used as, hallucinogens, and they call them the stillborn of the two fingers. And you might be asking, why is that? Why are these mushrooms growing at the feet of um these like giant what do you call it? Like finger ruins. Like why are they growing here? And that's because these ruins are actually grown. They're not sculpted. They're not building. Let me see if I can find item I'm looking for to illustrate this. I'll also get into why I think that a little more into the moon theory as well. Um, expand this myself. Find it. There we go. Nailstone. So it says here that these pieces come off the column like uh stone like fingers um that grow. So these fingers that you see here, they're growing. They have not stopped growing and they will continue to grow. And all around this place you find lampreys. And lampreys are interesting creatures, I'll say that much. Let me get an image of them and move that over here so I can get room for myself. Um, First of all, they look like this, which is hilarious. Um, but they drop a very important thing amongst the uh finger mimic mushrooms. They also drop pearlescent scales, and what this is a glassy, glistening fragment um that are embedded deep into the lamprey. And I think that what these scales represent is a connection to the moon again. I think that the moon itself is pearlescent. I think it harbors in all the different aspects of life itself as a star does. I think that's why the Karians um see it as equal to stars. I think it's because of that these moons they harbor great power. It doesn't make sense that Renala would bewitch the Academy otherwise, and certainly that Mecher and the Two Fingers especially would not read about their age, would not give this information to the Dynast to have him lead a pilgrimage to the realm of shadow to bring about the age of the Urge. I think that it's just a chain, I think, of relation that of course goes into the laws of the Elden Ring, but I digress. Um let's see, did I go through everything? Let's see, we got that. Look at my notes. Oh yeah, another connection of Rey Lucaria and the sun also that I forgot to mention is that the let's see. I call them wizard towers, but I know they're not called that. They're the towers that you get the memory stones from. Let's see. I just like type in memory stone like go through like wherever you find them. Let's see. Like Ordis's Rise. Yeah, there you go. Is that a good picture? Please tell me it's a good picture. Not. Why? Oh, whatever. I'll just put this here so I could get it out of the way. Um, I wish I had a picture of this, but inside these towers is and you may have noticed this if you play the DLC where you get the ashes of Anna and like mix them with Yolan. There's the hole that leads down where you get the bell bearing of the spell machinist, and there's a another connection to the sun. There's an eight-pointed star that's right there in that hole. Like the hole is shaped like that. So yeah, there you go. And that's in all of these. towers that I think may be connected to the Eternal Cities. I'm not quite sure, but there you go. Another connection to the sun there. Um, my God, we went through a lot. So okay, talk about the fingers. What that? Okay, let's talk about the ritual of light and dark. Now, the ritual of light and dark is a ritual that um, hang on, water moment. Stay hydrated, chat. Okay, it's a ritual that. Oh my God, really illegal. There you go. The first. Okay, I need to stop talking. So let's talk about the stone sheathed sword first. Why don't I have a picture of this? Thought I did. Where should I put this? I'll put it here because I think that's probably where. Let's see, sticky notes. Okay, gotta be orderly. I'll get the description, and it says it's a sword that none can pull from its scabbard of cracked stone, a relic of a lost civilization from a time long past. That's why it served a ritual purpose at altars of light and darkness. Um, now the ritual itself, I think, has connections to Rao. Um, for a couple reasons. Number one being, let's see, the first altar that I'm going to share with y'all, and that's the altar of light that you find in the ancient Rao room. Um, the altar itself sits at maybe if I have a maybe in the picture, yeah, it shows in the picture here. This tower here, it's at this platform in the middle here, and below the platform is the Miranda flower crucible item. So there's that. Um, and also number 8 here, octagon, 8-pointed star. Yeah, the star goes up again. Go figure. Um, and let's see. Go put that there. Oh, and by the way, you uh acquire this sword at the Fog Rift ruins, uh right next to Castle Ensis. If you take the path down, you get into the catacomb, and you find this in like a secret little area tucked away. And I think that the sword being here is probably like where you're supposed to find it first. So yeah. Um, I'll get into the connection of the pattern in a second here. Okay. And the last one is the altar of dark that you find at the ruins of Unte. And the ruins of Unte are surrounded by um a field of very colorful flowers, and I think that's just mwah, like chef's kiss to tying into the lore, especially with my theory. Like it just fits together perfectly. I'll get into why in a second. So you have these two places that you can take the stone uh sheathed sword to, and you can raise it, both of them, to the altar and acquire two swords. The first one is the Sword of Light, and it's a beautiful sword, by the way. Um, and let me get the description here. It says, and yep, Sword of Light, pulled from its stone scabbard at an altar. From the quick of the root, unswerving rays of light intersect and reflect, give the silver blade form. Okay, the next one is the Sword of Darkness. Another cool looking sword, and personally my favorite one. Um, damn. Sword of Darkness, pulled from its stone scabbard. From the quick of the root, wandering coils of darkness coalesce and release, their eddies and vortices giving form to the dark blade. Now, you might be asking, why is this important? Well, first of all, the pattern here closely mimics that to the giant stone walls that you find at the finger room, all of them. I think that the ritual of light and dark was inspired by the two fingers. And I say this without not without merit or evidence. The first piece of evidence that I have as to why I think this is the case comes from all the related spells and items related to the fingers. The first one is the cipher Pata. So it's a weapon originating from two fingers. Sorry, I was copying and pasting. Um, it's basically just a language of light that the two fingers speak with. They don't actually speak, they wriggle their fingers to spell mysteries in the air. You get that from, you call it the finger talisman. Hear that as well. And I'll just put a note saying spelling air. There we go. Little tiny cutesy little. There you go. So the fingers would spell with light, but keep in mind, if you go into the basement, or not the basement, but like in the bottom area of the round table hold, you can also find the two fingers spellbook. In there you find darkness incantation. And this incantation is of the um the Assassin's Prayer book, of which um also Assassin's Approach that here. And these were of the Two Fingers servant, who were tasked, I spelled service wrong, well, to hunt Tarnish, who strayed grace. So the fingers had both the the powers of light and dark at the same time. Um, of course, far more likely for them to use the 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 powers of light, like healing spells, but also powers of dark, silence, the stuff that would allow them to carry out duties on their own, or excuse me, outside of themselves, with the express purpose of leading the Tarnished to becoming lords for their age. But this ritual of light and dark was also invoked by people and were put into the swords because I think that light and dark itself are divine. I mean, of course, the Elden Beast itself is literally made of light. But Metra, she is of darkness as well. I mean, she literally features on the Godskin Apostle's sigil of black flame, of darkness, of killing things, silencing. What does this mean? Well, it ties back to the village of Damula, very closely, in fact. And there's a reason for that. So let's get into the shaman village first of all. It's a beautiful village, by the way. Um, Let me move a couple things around because this is gonna get quite crowded. I'm actually gonna put the giants over here because I think they kind of existed probably before this. Okay, here's the shaman village. And their village. Put a little smiley face too. There you go. Just so you know. Um, the people of the shaman village. Uh, well, of course, it's the birthplace of America. Yep, of America. There you go. There's America. When America was born is a question that I had, but she was probably born um after the Elden Beast had landed and created the that. probably existed around the same time as all this, and certainly the like I'll even like I'll put the I think the village itself, the Tom village, probably existed around this point here. Yeah, there you go. So America was born here in this village, and in this village, they worship something called the Grand. Um, and the grandmother is this wooden effigy that's inside this crooked tree. Of course, invocations of the divine feminine all around here, by the way. Certainly for the women, because they were the shaman. In fact, um, in the Japanese translation, the shaman's not like the right word to more like spiritual woman or something is like the right word to. But in any case, shamans. Now the shamans, see, Beltron's again, were rounded up by the horn scent, where they would saints in the jars. Now, how they did this? Well, first of all, let me get jar. There are a bunch of these. Um, I'll get the less unflattering. Actually, maybe I won't. There are these things called jar innards in the game. They're quite gross. They have the flayed shaman at the front. Um, and there's variants to have them inside the jars, and sometimes they come out of the jars. Uh, why do they look like this? Well, that goes into the tooth whip. And what it is a whip with rotting, misshapen teeth, filthy and seething with disease. The teeth are embedded in the whip and dose the victim with poison that inflames the victim and causes them to ooze pus. But it was said that the flesh of shamans would melt harmoniously with others. So the horn scent would whip the shamans, the people of America, cause them to inflame and bloody, gross with pus and all this grossness, stuff them into jars, and then at that point, um, just make them become saints in the jar. What that means is I don't know quite what it means, but and there's also uh a debate whether or not the shamans wanted this to happen, or it was done against their will. I think that it was probably done against their will. Um, or even the horn scent would, and there's a horn scent phantom outside a room in one of the jails that this happens in. And oops. And and explicitly states that he doesn't want to be put in the jar. So what's my thought behind it is that um call it, that this means that sainthood probably wasn't a good thing for someone to inherit for themselves. And I think that all this all of this festival, everything is connected, all connected. It's all connected. I think that the shamans of the villages were invoking the same. I mean, look at these flowers here, and they're beautiful, and look at the flowers here, they're beautiful. Like literally, it's all connected. I think that the Horn Scent knew that the shamans were evoking the divine and wanted to abuse that fact, and did so to extreme effects, obviously. Um, and America at some point, around here, probably during the King of Brow, probably much later, um, certainly after the old civilization came here, um, and maybe the Eternal City probably didn't exist around this time. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe. Um. Again, Eternal City is hard to place. Um. I'll probably move it after the stream. Like looking at it, that it's placed right here gives me bad thoughts, bad vibes. Um. But in any case, America was born sometime around here, and some funny things happened. We'll probably get into that next stream, perhaps, because the last thing I want to talk about today is the serpent. One thing that nobody likes talking about because I mean, like it has a lot of mystery surrounding it, but we're going to begin with the place that the shamans were um, played at the most, and that is Bonnie Village. And this is the place that you acquire the tooth whip at a place literally called the Whipping Hut. Yeah, this is where they stuff the shamans into jars. Awful shit. But, and this is a big but, at the village, picture of it is skin of Eagle, the great serpent. And specifically, it's facing the grandmother, another grandmother, but one that's headless. This, the existence of the serpent's skin here, it boggles the mind. And there's also a connection. The reason why we call it the skin of Eagle, the great serpent, is because uh, somebody, I think it was Sekiro Doobie, or maybe it was Bonfire, be something that looked into this, and they found that it's literally the same. model, same skin, everything. Um, and you might be asking, why is this here? Why is the skin of the Great Serpent here? Okay, so that gets into um some other thing. Um, I don't have a picture of it. Why? Why? So let's see here. Serpent God Curved Sword. This is where we'll start. Beautiful sword, by the way. And I'll place this actually quite far back because I'm not so sure that um this is the case, but I'm of the opinion that the Serpent God existed for a long time. A long time. And I think it's because the serpent is probably um most likely one of the first things to ever exist in the universe. I'll get into why I think that in a minute. Okay, so here's the description of the uh serpent god's curved sword. We have curved swords fashioned in the image of an ancient serpent deity and tool of a forgotten religion practiced on Mount Gil, formerly used to offer up sacrifices. The sword stores HP upon slinging it. So, yeah, like it's that's the first inkling here. Um, the second is actually in Mountain Gelmir itself. It's uh first of all we have the skin of Igle itself back there, and of course the statues of the feathered serpent uh placed all around in reverence to it. Also, you fight a godskin here. I don't know what that means right now. Think about it, but um, just so you know, um, Mount Gelmir hosted practice serpent worship. And you're I'm asking like, why are they worshiping the serpent here? And the reason is because underneath the volcano rests the god devouring serpent Igle. Find a good picture of it. Go. God devouring. Oops. Dwells in. Now, Volcano Manor itself is interesting because I don't actually know, like, on the timeline wise, where it's placed. Um, it was probably built around the same time as like the Sun Realm, perhaps, maybe. But the worship of Eagle itself probably existed for a very long. Um, and why exactly? Well, because I think that the serpent itself represents um something called the abyssal serpent. Um, and the abyssal serpent is it's not really a good picture of it because it's very dark, but um okay, so I'm kind of like going off the rails here, but bear with me. I think that the the abyssal slash base serpent. I think that the abyssal serpent represents the fell god. It represents everything, as does the sun itself. It's a golden, shining light that gives life to things. I think that the sun itself also represents darkness. It represents fire. It represents um death. And maybe time. And I say maybe time because, of course, and this comes from Akshaw's video, where time is represented as the Elden Ring times. I'm not gonna find a picture of this. Well, this is good enough. I actually get both these here. We have the sun and we have the moon, and in this picture here, um, it has the spiral that's inside here, which of course snakes representative. We have the 8-pointed star, which represents the sun. But the base serpent that, of course, right now dwells within Mesmer is a really complicated subject. But I think it okay. It represents darkness, but also represents light, because of course fire, but mostly darkness. For darkness, it wanders, it coalesces, releases. I mean, look at it. It's windy, it's spirally. It's like it's has a life of its own. But as does fire. Fire does as well. It winds, it coils, it expands. It brings light. It brings warmth to everything. It brings the light to the flowers. It gives them life as they, photosynthesis. Um and of course the Eye of the Fell God that you fight with the Fire Giant, it spirals, it's moving in a spiral. The snake moves within everything. And I think that the snake itself represents a thing that the horn scent feared. And I say that because of the where's it here? Called Furnace Golem. Drop something called a furnace. And it says here that the stone mask surrounded by gold horns depicts the fell god of fire that haunts the sagas of Hornsent. Sagas, of course, here meaning like stories of the Hornsent. Like this is a story passed down from the Hornsent. Or if you want to look at it a different way, it's of course oh, this is like a thing that the Hornsent, like a line of Hornsent, like all the Hornsent coming down from a line of okay, that was kind of like bad to explain, but kind of like how Hornsent themselves pass down information down to each other. They have a story of this fell god of fire that shows up here, but this visage looks like the sun. I mean, it literally looks like the sun more than anything, and I think this okay. This goes into, of course, the betrayal that America um had found, but it also goes into something else about the horns, and that is um Midra's manse in the abyss, which was also founded around the same time here in the Age of Untouchables. And I think what happened here is uh now put the theory here. The sage Mitra was studying the nature of divinity and found within it the frenzied flame and true meaning or excuse me, true representation of the greater will. I think that Mitra, like literally, I think he, and this is Mitra by the way, the sage. Well, when he becomes Lord Frenzy Flame, but what the Frenzy Flame itself looks, it's a sun, by the way. Didn't like, yes. Um, the sun shows up everywhere. It shows up in Goldmask's thing, but like it's man, I have conniptions about it because like at the same time I understand that like anyways, what happened is that of course Mitra is uh in- inquisited, is that a word? By the horn scent um I guess like upper echelon and Lord of Frenzied Flame is subdued. And of course, you find in the Midra's Man's Fem says like, what crime did Mitra commit? Like, oh, and I think this is because Mitra actually did probably find the truth of everything. The truth that the divine that they were worshiping, the sun, was in fact the very thing that they were trying to escape from. The fire of the fell god, the fire that would burn the Erd tree that the Dynast was, um, you know, uh, envisioning, the vision that he saw. The same tree that we find in the Land of Shadow, Shadow Tree. I think that it itself was the location of the crucible. It's, of course, if you understand plants, there's something called a tree crucible, I think, or like something like that. And like it's a competition between organisms in that sense that they compete, find which one will uh become the most dominant. And trees do this. And in this one, it seems like this one, this it's labeled in the Shadow Tree avatar, one of the items. It says that it's winding around the central tree like in an embrace. And I think that this, like all these things here, this stuff, the horn scent, they use this tree as like a vector for everything. They, I have a, I'm leading up to something here, and it goes into America's betrayal. But essentially, there's two reasons why the tree itself is like this. Either the horn scent broke it in order to get the sap out of it, or America broke it to get the sap out of it first. So I'm not quite sure which one's true. Probably the one where America breaks it for her own gain. I think the music just stopped. Anyways, I need time to think about it, really, because I talked about a lot today, and all the things I talked about today go into, of course, my research that I did yesterday and the day before. Um, so I don't really have any concrete theories. My main reason as to why the tree looks like this is maybe because America burned it right now. That's why I think, and that's why she was labeled as a betrayer. The horn scent, I mean, burning their sacred tree would be really bad, and of course, burning a tree would allow it to be brittle and to open split so you can get the sacred sap out of it. Um, and of course, I think she understood that this would be possible because the same thing that they were invoking, their divinity, the sun, was the fell god. In fact, the same god that they feared. Um, the god that is connected to the base serpent, the serpent of fire, the serpent of life giving. Something they should have feared at the start, but they didn't. Um, and there's more connections as to why I think this is the case, but I'm getting quite tired. I went through a lot pretty quickly. Um, yeah, I did all that without interacting with chat because no one talked. But hope you enjoyed all of that. Um, I think what I need to do is think more about. I need to think ahead. I think next time I'll have more concrete theories regarding the timeline. Right now, like the latest timeline I have is like Astel and all that. Um, but certainly I need to find out where the Eternal City lands, and when I do, I'll probably stream again. So if I find out when the Eternal Cities are established, I think that will crack open everything the more. But in any case, I think that'll be it for stream today. A little bit of a shorter stream, obviously. Um, but I think that next time, um, we'll have more to talk about. So, if you enjoyed today's stream, give a follow, tell your friends, stay hydrated. I love you all very much, and I'll see you all next time. Bye bye. Love you.